What you're about to hear is a chilling story narrated by Dark Waters. Dark personally talks to these people that report these events. Sometimes he tells his personal story, and sometimes, every now and then, he'll play their actual voices. But what you're about to hear are stories of true accounts that happened. Keep in mind, Dark doesn't report and produce every story he is told. In fact, through a careful selection process, he has his own methods of detecting if the person reporting the experience is telling him true accounts of what they experienced, or if they're not. Prepare yourself for what you're about to hear. For more stories like these, head over to IamDarkWaters.com for more content from the King of Horror, Dark Waters.
So I grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Lived there for over 22 years, then moved to Leesville, where I got a job working for one of the local gas plants. During that time, I got married, bought a house, had kids, and I would say my life was going about as good as it could go for a boy from Lake Charles, Louisiana. I got me a new King Ranch F-150 and spent most of my off time hunting and fishing, which for me was my dream lifestyle. About a year ago, a friend comes to me and he tells me about this camp that's for sale, hunting grounds, with access to the Sabine River where you can go fishing. He said he bumped into this old man. He told him he was tired of managing the property and wanted to just get rid of it. His asking price was $115,000. That included the land, a raised hunting lodge, a boat dock, a shed, solar panel, septic tank, the whole 9 yards. $115,000 for all that was one hell of a deal. So I got his contact information, reached out to him, and after a little bit of negotiation, I was able to get him down to $105,000. We signed a contract and was scheduled to close for 30 days. After that, I talked to a couple of my buddies from work, and I agreed to finance the property, but they would help me carry the monthly note. And in return for helping me with the note, they could have access to the property at any point in time they wanted. Now let me tell you, after negotiating that deal and getting my friends to help me pay for it, I felt like a real estate mogul. 30 days later, we close, take ownership of the property, and I head over to change the locks on the doors and install one of those electronic keypad door locks. Then I text everyone the code so they could get in. Standing on the porch looking at the property was absolutely beautiful. A hunter's and fisherman's dream. Now, during the process of buying this place, it had to go through an inspection and an appraisal. Now, there was one thing that stood out during the appraisal that I really wanted to take a look at for myself. In the appraisal report, the appraiser noted that there were scratches on the side of the structure. And in the report, he worded it in these exact words: unusual damage to wooden structure. Appears to be claw marks made by a wild animal. As I circled around the building, I remembered the words from the report. But once I got a chance to look at it myself, it was completely confusing. You see, this building was raised above flood level, 7 feet, and the scratches were at 8 and 9 feet. I found it to be strange, absolutely, but I wrote it all off because sometimes the Sabine River floods, and I just figured some debris had washed up and scratched up against the structure. After that visit, stuff at work got completely hectic, and I found myself being the last one to actually put the property to use. Percy Williams, our pastor, who worked at the plant with me, was one of the first guys to put the property to use. After him, Timothy, then my friend Donovan. And the very first sign of something weird going on this property was when Pastor Percy called me. It was a Sunday morning. I was working overtime at the plant, and he sounded frantic on the phone. Now, I need you to understand something. Percy is an old black pastor, and he talks exactly like one. He says, "Son, I tell you, there got to be something evil out there in them woods. You can hear it at night, in the dark. Last night I was out there, And I started to hear sounds and growls and screams, things I ain't never heard before in my whole entire life. I'm telling you, there's something evil out there. Now I need you to understand something. I was on my second shift and tired as a Hebrew slave. I heard him, yes, but I wasn't processing exactly what he said at the moment. I tell him, Pastor P, let me call you back tomorrow and we'll talk about it. My shift is almost over and I need some food and sleep. No more than a week and a half passes and the production slows down at the plant and I finally get some time off. And I'm excited about heading to the property. I call my boy Donovan and tell him, look, let's get the boat out on the river and do some fishing. We can spend Friday night and then hit the waters early Saturday morning, spend the entire day, come back, have some beers, cigars, cook some fish, and chill. I'm telling him, Donovan, I need this. Let's make it happen. Donovan, in turn, calls Tim, and then Tim calls Pastor P. Now, what was supposed to just be a 2-man fishing trip turns into a 4-man guys weekend retreat. And for me, the more the merrier, because I know we all needed some time to relax. The next day, everybody gets a pass from the old lady, and we cooking with grease. Again, the plan is to spend the night Friday night, get up, go fishing, cook those fish on the grill outside, get drunk, go to sleep, do it all again the next day, and then after that, Monday morning, everybody would head to work. It sounded like a good plan, and it was a good plan. But then things went off the rails, and they went off the rails fast. It all started Friday night. Don had brought his boat to the property, launched it, and tied it to the boat dock. For dinner, we had grilled steaks and seasoned vegetables. We were all sitting outside on the elevated porch. We had just finished eating, now we're smoking and drinking. It's about 8:45 p.m. when we hear this screaming sound. High-pitched shrieking is what I would describe it as. It sounded like some kind of wild animal had escaped out of a horror movie and was in the tree line screaming at us. Pastor P sits straight up in his chair and says, I told y'all there was something evil out here in these woods. We hear the sound again. This high, screeching sound. Then things go quiet. And I don't mean quiet in a good way. I mean dead quiet. That silence, like you know something bad is about to happen. That's exactly what it was. In that moment, we all decided it was best to go ahead inside and call it a night. The next morning, we get up at 6 a.m., get the boat launched, and we're out there fishing, trolling along the banks of the Sabine River. Pastor P had just caught a blue catfish when we hear that sound again. This screeching, screaming sound. And it's coming from the brush right along the banks of the river. You know how when something weird or awkward happens, how everybody looks around and looks at each other trying to find an explanation? That's what was going on when we hear this freaking growling sound. Dude, this sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before in my life. Percy drops the fish. Donovan is scrambling to the back of the boat. Whoa, what a great story.